Claire, thanks very much for joining us from Dublin. Greystar, specialist in the residential market. How have the prospects changed, do you think? I guess we're almost a year on now from the pandemic.
I think there's still a strong market for it, but what we have noticed is for residential sites, for example, there hasn't been a huge amount of residential sites trading. So that's one thing that we're certainly very keen on investing more of. And we've been watching a number of pipeline developments very closely, based again on finance predominantly. So the cost and the terms of finance now are different to what they would have been pre-COVID, which will impact on what people can afford to pay for sites. So that's one aspect. We then have rent and rent collection. What we have seen is that residential has been very strong in relation to other commercial aspects of the market with regard to rent collection. So overall in the Irish market, we've seen about 95% collection rates. Our own portfolio has been between 97 and 98% for Q4 of last year. So again, very resilient post-pandemic. There are certainly opportunities in the market going forward, and Greystar is a vertically integrated platform looking at development deals, forward funds, forward purchases. We're certainly monitoring each of those different categories. But overall, the demand for residential stock is still strong, both on the PRS front and actually also for individual sales. So some analysts are actually predicting a 5% increase in house prices throughout 2021, despite the pandemic that's currently ravaging the market. So I think overall a very positive outcome for the residential market in Ireland.
And are you seeing, Claire, anything in terms of longer term impacts on the types of residential products that consumers are looking for?
Yeah, there have been a few actually interesting phenomena that we have seen, again, through our asset in Dublin Landings. So one that we did not see pre-COVID was that people hadn't really decided where they wanted to live, i.e. city centre or suburban. So beforehand, if people were viewing our property, they had made up their mind they wanted to be in the city centre and near the restaurants and bars and partaking in that kind of lifestyle. Now, some of our people that are coming to view the property, they're choosing between city centre or suburban. So they haven't actually made up their mind where they want to live. And again, that's, I suppose, stemming from the working from home ability currently. So that's been one interesting, I suppose, outcome. So we're now looking at, I suppose, different changes. Space has become a lot more important to people because they're at home a lot more. That quality of space has become a lot more important. We're very lucky in our apartment blocks that we actually have very large units. The hallways are very wide. There is a great sense of space within the apartments. Demand for 2 beds has increased. So previously we would have seen more of a demand for 1 beds, probably driven by pricing, whereas now people, because they're spending more time at home, again, working there, they want the spare room for the office, for example. So that 2-bed demand has certainly increased. And access to private open space, so balconies, having a balcony that you can actually sit out and use rather than just stuck onto the side of a building, that nobody ever actually actively uses. That's become a lot more important as well. So we can kind of see those changes in the design parameters. So I suppose going forward, what that means for us is that we need to kind of recalibrate our market expectations and the way that we approach design. So we're very much looking in a post-COVID world of what will people want looking into the future and making sure that our design aspirations match what the resident expectations are. One other factor, I suppose, is community. So because people are stuck in apartments, they're missing that social interaction. We have found that the community interaction has become increasingly important. So we're doing a lot of virtual online events. We had musical bingo there last week with all our residents on. I joined with my 2 kids. We were all singing away and, playing bingo. But, we got very, very good feedback from that because, again, people are going a little bit stir crazy in their apartments. So that interaction, even if it is via a screen, I think has become a lot more important and really building that community spirit.
Yeah, really interesting to see how those things have developed. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of design, I think, particularly in that residential sector. Thanks very much for joining us, Claire.
Thank you very much for having me.